So today we're going to look at the worst optimized track in the Dreamiverse. Whoa! It's very slow frame rate when you're looking at the whole thing, but when you zoom in it's fine, so that's alright. So so brace yourself because this won't sound very good. Let me go over here. So that was a bit of an ordeal, but the point isn't that it sounds any good, it's that it's suboptimal. Yeah, so as you can see in the gameplay, it's at 87% for this, and most of it's just the same thing copied over and over, or in fact all of it is, and it's 12 minutes long of that. Most tracks in the Dreamverse aren't that bad, obviously, but they can be pretty heavy on the thermo, which is unfortunate because then it's using up a load of gameplay thermo that you need for actual logic in your game, things like that. And it also, yeah, it just means it has to load more and all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to show you some techniques to optimize something like this, or ways to make your track in the first place that will both be easier to make and also better for thermo things. So so we have 87% gameplay left. No, we have 13% gameplay left. And I'm going to try and recreate that whole track. Oh man, getting some frame drops. Is that just because that exists? Oh no, it's okay now. Oh, it's going slow again. So I have this open like that, and let's so this has, I don't know how loud that is relative to the mic. Let me know if it's drowning out my voice. Where is it? Oh yeah. So this has got random note drop. If I turn that off. Oh, I edited the wrong one. There we go. That's one of the problems, is that if you want to change how this instrument sounds for your track, you have to select all of these, which is real tedious. If I turn note drop down, so it's just a load of notes like that, and I'll turn the reverb down so it's doesn't last so long, like that. So and that's just looped the whole length of the thing. So let's grab that, make that into the beats mode, and then if you tweak it and just set it to loop, we'll drag this out to be the same length, which is the maximum it could be, which is 360 bars, which will be the same as that bottom one. So now we can grab that end and just drag it. Actually, if we look like that, we can drag it like that. Whoop. And it can be as long as you like. And let's turn that off. And it sounds just the same as this one if I like that. So if I probably can't delete that without undoing it. So this costs less than 1% of thermo, whereas I tested this earlier. This line of just those copies costs 2% of gameplay thermo, which isn't a lot by itself, but you won't just have one of these things. You'll have like lots of different clips in your track, and you can do the same thing for these others. So grab that one, and we're just going to turn this down and set this to loop. Oh, grab the end and drag that out. There you go. And grab the other one. Do the same thing. Make it loop and drag that out. And now you've got exactly the same thing as you had down here for way less thermo. Like that. However, what if you don't have, but if you have these gaps and stuff? So when there is like an alternating thing, if I just solo those ones and press play. So it sounds like that. There are a couple of ways of dealing with that. The first, so I'll just copy these up here first. The first would be to add like gaps at the end. So if I drag that out like that, now I have a gap at the end, and I can loop it, and it'll start on the correct bars, and we can do the same for the dreams vocals. Put a gap at the beginning by dragging the left side. Oh no, it doesn't work. So drag the right side, like that. There you go. And do the same. Make it loop and drag it way out. Let's smooth this up. There we go, it runs a bit better like that. So now like that. And again, that is way less thermo than this version. There is another way of doing this. So I'll just put on the sidebar here, which lets you turn whole rows on and off, or lets you solo them, which means only that row will be allowed to play. So we'll turn these off and do a different version. Yeah, so if you want to keep the timing of something, if you have like a longer section basically that has multiple different clips in like a certain order at certain timing, and you want that whole section to loop, then it can be better to loop the entire timeline. So I've put a timeline into the timeline, so you have this nested timeline going on, and now you can set that one to loop and drag that one out just as normal. So now cool, so that works. What else we got? Oh yeah, so there's this drum part, so I'll copy this up here. So so again, because these are looping, we can just loop them and stretch them out like that. Or you can use this technique where you have a nested timeline and have the timeline that length and loop that out. Or there's another way that works particularly with row mapping style instruments. So you know how here you press the space buttons and they play a different row of these samples. So all we're using is the X and the triangle. So in here, these are actually from different recordings. You can tell that because they're different colors. So these come from one recording and this green one comes from a different recording, which means if I delete those, you probably won't see it, but that will reduce audio thermo because it doesn't have to load this this audio in at all. Now, yeah, which ones were we using? X and triangle. So we don't actually need any of the others. So if I double tap X in here, then that selects all of the slices in the slice mapper. And I'll deselect the ones we want to keep. And then press triangle on the others, and now only those exist. So if you play it, it's loop. So that works just as well, but we don't have to load in all those other audio clips and slices and stuff. So that's one step. Oops. Another step would be to combine this into the same drum set, and then we just have one drum set clip thing. So this is using the circle sample, which is that. It actually has some effects on it and stuff. If I just... No, that's not working. There we go. If I turn that off... and play it. Oh, that's okay. So circle, so I can just drag this in and put it wherever I like. I'll just put it in circle again over here. And then, so in here I had notes on every beat. So I'll do the same in here. I'll just copy a note from here. So that's what it sounds like without the special settings and stuff. But often that's just fine. Normally a drum kit or something doesn't have a load of special settings. So now you have one clip when you did have two that sounds the same, uses the same samples and stuff. So like that. Next we have this part. So if I grab that, where are we? Okay, so you can see here, I actually added those last, so I wouldn't have been able to copy these across the entire timeline because we're already so maxed out on gameplay, it just wouldn't let me. So because each clip is really thin like that, and this is because we have this like fall off. So like that. So it's got a nice like fall off to the note and stuff, which is fine. I'll just have that solo and that solo. There you go. So we'll recreate that. But you can, instead of having this fade off on the clip, you can just have it in here. So let's do that and see how that sounds. So I need it a bit shorter. Yeah, I think that's about right. Yep. So that saves us having to like add these fader curves. But we also want these other notes. So these other notes are actually different notes. So that's C4. That's a E4. And then that's a C3. So we'll add those in here. Like that. C4, E4, oh it's half a bar I think. And then back to C3, was it? Something like that. Okay, so now we have one clip. And we'll compare that to the original. So it's like similar enough that you can already tell the difference. I'll drag that out. Yeah, so so then you can loop this out just as the same as the other one. So you turn that off. That's strangely quiet, isn't it? Another thing that can use up a lot of thermo, I'm not sure which one is a good example of this. So this has a load of effect fields. If we play time, you can see it actually doesn't use any of those effect fields at all. So you could delete these, and they cost their own thermo each copy. So that version in here, is it that one? Yeah. That version in here, that has 4 extra gadgets it's not using in every one of those copies going along the whole timeline. Normally you don't have to, like if you're using these techniques, then like having a unused having unused effects in here wouldn't make any difference because there's only 4 of them in the entire track. But that might be something worth thinking about. Cool. Now there's this gap here. Whoa. So we lead up to here. So you might want this like drop off of like some of the loops or something, where they just go silent. So for that, so we got this over here. Say we want a drop off for that bar. You could just have a gap and then you have 2 of these, and that won't be much of a problem for thermo at all. Or you could like mute it. Let's try it this way actually. So you could have that running the whole length, and then you could use a keyframe on that to mute it like that, or power it off or something, and then expand it out for the. So if I go here, So it's the same effect as that other thing had, but using a different way. You could do the same on the whole timeline if you wanted the whole thing to go mute. Might not be as smooth, or you could put that in a timeline, expand that out, and have an effect. Whoa, going slow down for some reason. Now let's add a effect. I usually just grab a blank one. Oh, this has got to be in beats mode, and then make that volume 0. So then as you play through, so I don't think that these methods would actually save you much thermo, but it's just another way of doing that without having to have 2 copies of the clip. Because for example, if you had it like that, and then make that shorter, then you'd have to select both of these if you want to like tweak stuff, like shorten the tail on that, something like that. Like that. So those are just a few techniques they may find useful in when you're creating music, or when you want to bring in someone else's music, but it's just too much thermo for it to handle. Then you might have to optimize stuff manually like this. Cool.